Hey everyone, this is Miss Corey, and today I am going to teach you about the beginning of the Civil War. Now, as we go through this course, there is so much about the Civil War. Seriously, historians spend lifetimes on this. So we're definitely not going to get to everything, but hopefully I'll get you at least the basic things. So the first thing is this is an ed puzzle. If you've never done an ed puzzle before, that's okay. I know some other teachers have used them. But what's going to happen throughout this video is that you are going to have like the video will automatically stop. And you'll have to write questions. Usually the questions I give you are like comprehension questions or like questions about some important definitions that you would want to write in your study guides. Um, but if you have any questions at all about Edpuzzle or anything that I'm talking about, please let your teacher know. We are here to help you. All right, well, let's get started, y'all. For the first thing, I'm going to put up a sample question just to make sure that you know how to answer them right. So the sample question should come up right now. Sweet. All right, welcome back. Here we go. So before we get started, there's just a little bit of terminology, some definitions that we need to know. So there's Union and there's the Confederacy. And you are going to hear that a lot for like the next month. But I just want to get this really clear. So the Union, okay, is at this point in time in the 1860s, the Union is the United States. So that's going to be like the northern states, including Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. All those northern states are going to be part of the Union. And then the Confederacy, so far we've kind of talked about how we just say like the South, but the real name is the Confederacy. So those are the states that broke away from the United States during the Civil War. And you might have heard the Confederacy, like with the Confederate flag, and it's still a pretty big deal, especially in the South. So just want to get those two things cleared up. So Union is North United States, Confederacy is the South, and those are the United States of the Confederacy. So cool. All right, so what is Abraham Lincoln thinking at this time? What's Lincoln thinking? So he takes office as president in 1861. The southern states, like we talked about a little bit beforehand, they are mad. They're like, no, this dude's going to get rid of slavery. So that is when southern states are starting to leave the United States, is when Lincoln starts taking office. In a last minute attempt, though, President Lincoln says he will not get rid of slavery just to try to save the southern states from leaving the United States altogether. He's like, last minute effort, like, hey, like if you stay with me, I won't get rid of slavery. But the southern states at that point kind of already had it. So it's already too late, and the southern states leave the United States, right? They make the Confederacy, and now they are ready for war. All right, so southern states split apart from the United States. The South starts taking over things that are owned by the United States, such as mint, so that's where the US makes some money. Arsenals, so those are where places where weapons are stored, and military bases. We're going to talk about Fort Sumter in just a minute. So down here, here's a picture of a Confederate States money, and then we got some arsenal with like cannons, and then Fort Sumter. Cool. All right, so this is your first definition word. That is Fort Sumter. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened. So Fort Sumter, it is located in Charleston, South Carolina. It is on the ocean. So it is actually built on a little island that's pretty much just like has a giant fort or kind of like a big building with a high wall on this little island. It is the location of the first battle of the Civil War. And the fort was owned by the United States / the Union. And what happened is that the South, right? So this is in South Carolina. So this is one of the states that succeeded from the United States. So they're like, oh snap, like look at this fort. I'm going to attack it because it's owned by the United States / Union, right? Okay. All right, so during this battle, um, if it's on an island, what do you think the armies need in order to win the fight if it's surrounded by water? All right, so at this point, Lincoln's like, okay, so the Confederacy is going to attack the fort. So Lincoln sends a bunch of supply ships to the fort to help like defend it. Um, and although Lincoln does send those ships and supplies, it's not enough. The Confederacy attacks the fort, and the Confederacy wins this fort over the Union. All right, and one of the really interesting things about this, you don't have to write this down, but although this was a full-on battle, like guns, cannons, everything, there were no deaths. And this is a very interesting battle compared to all the other battles we're going to talk about, because the Civil War becomes one of the bloodiest wars in American history. Okay, so after Fort Sumter, the North is shocked. They're like, oh, what? We lost? How could we? So Lincoln, on the other hand, too, he gets mad. He's like, what? We lost? That's impossible. So he asked for 75,000 soldiers to fight back. He wants 75,000 soldiers to volunteer to fight back against the Southern states. Even Stephen Douglas, do you remember who he was? He even supports Lincoln to send troops to the South. All right, so do you remember the first Northern state that sends troops to the Civil War? Did all slavery states leave the US and join the Confederacy? What do you think? No, not all slavery states actually left the United States to join the Confederacy. There were a few states. They're called border states. That's one of your other definitions. All right, so write this down in the study guide. Border states. That included Delaware, Kentucky, Maryland, and Missouri. Oh, and also West Virginia. Sorry, forgot about them. They were all slavery states, so that means they allowed slavery, but they didn't leave the United States. They stayed with the United States. All right, so war has broken out between the Union and the Confederacy, but there's a lot of confusion within the United States at this time. So some people are confused of what side they should support. No matter if they're in the Union or in the Confederacy, they're still confused. For example, this is First Lady Lincoln, who was very confused about what side she should support. Of course, she supported the Union because she's the First Lady with Lincoln. But she had brothers that battled in the Confederacy. So she was kind of confused on who she should really support. But of course, she was anti-slavery at the time, so the choice was clear to her at the end. Okay, the other really big thing about the Civil War is the resources. So, right, you can't just have a war, right? You need all the things for it. You need to feed the troops. You need men. You need to transport men. You need to transport stuff. You need guns. There is so much materials that go into a war. So that is where there's a big difference between the North and the South. So the Union versus the Confederacy. In the Union, there is 22,000 miles of railroads compared to the Confederacy, which only has 9,000. So railroads not only transfer people, but they transfer things. All right. Also, the Union had better trade relations with Europe. And if they have better trade relations with other countries, that means they're going to make more money, right? They also had more coal, iron, wheat, and wool to arm the soldiers, but also to feed them, right? They also grew corn, wheat. They raised beef and pork. So they had quite a bit of food. And of course, one of the biggest things, wars are expensive. The Union had more money. All right, compared to the Confederacy, they did have some advantages too. They had better trained military commanders. They also had some trees for natural defense. Just what your textbook says. I guess I can't really say much to that. They had farms in the South too, but a lot of the time the food growing farms were a lot smaller because the big farms, right? The plantations, what did they grow? They grew cotton. Can you eat cotton? No, you can't. All right, so tell me, who had the better resources, the Union or the Confederacy? All right, last but not least, cotton diplomacy. So this is one of your definition words, by the way, in your study guide. So write this down. This is a hope, a wish, a desire that the South had. So the Confederacy had this hope that they had so much cotton. And who loved their cotton? Britain. That's right. England, Britain, Great Britain, they loved the Southern cotton. So Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederacy, hoped Britain would support the Confederacy in the Civil War due to their strong relationship with cotton, right? So the South would sell cotton to Britain, Britain would make things with it. Oh, so do you think Britain ended up supporting the Confederacy because of cotton? All right, that is all for today. Tomorrow, we're going to continue a little bit more on 16.1, and hopefully we'll get to 16.2 as well. But we will talk about how both sides prepared for war, what made men volunteer, and the support from the communities. All right, once again, if you have any questions at all, please ask your teacher. We are here to help you. All right, I will see you later. Thanks for watching, y'all.